Hello and welcome to the Alt Asset Allocation Podcast. Today's interview is with Cooper Turley, or Koopa Troopa, on Twitter. The crypto ecosystem is quite vast and always very quickly moving. However, there are a few major trends that are accelerating. DAOs, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, DeFi, Decentralized Finance, and social tokens. There's no fun acronym there, unfortunately. But there is loads to unpack on each of these, and Cooper is just the guy to do it. Before we jump into the episode, I wanted to take a second to thank you for all the great questions and feedback I'm getting. I love getting these messages, and you guys really rock. If you're getting some value from these podcasts, please drop me a line or a review. These things really help, and they mean a lot. All right, all things crypto with Cooper Turley. Enjoy. Cooper, welcome to the Alt Asset Allocation Podcast. Excited to finally have you on.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Indeed, man. We've been talking about this forever, so it's been a long time coming. I kicked off this podcast about a year ago, and Alex was the first guest, and he's a friend of yours, and I think we've been talking about it ever since then. So it's been a long time coming. And I'm actually confused why we didn't do this in person now that I think about it. But we'll save that for the next round two. That's for sure.
Totally, man. I mean, it's exciting. The world's opening back up. I think that there's been so much that has happened in the last year that I'm glad we get a chance to look back and reflect on it all now that we have a lot of time to actually do that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in this space that we play in crypto, all of these things, you're a big deal for my listeners. But with this podcast and this audience, we have a lot of alternative investors, people not even into crypto. So let's start off with a bit of your background, who you are and how you got into crypto.
Sure. I've been working in crypto now for about 5 years. I've really been in love with this idea of community and the creator economy. So I went to school for music business. I quickly fell down the crypto rabbit hole because of the idea of smart contracts and, really just the ability to help expedite royalty payments in the way that artists get paid. Basically took a leap of faith, didn't know what I was doing out of college, started working for a bunch of projects, started going to a bunch of conferences around the world, got really into DeFi, started a couple of DeFi blogs, wrote about that actively, did the whole DeFi summer yield farming type thing, and then woke up one day and realized that finance wasn't getting it done for me. Like adding another zero to the portfolio wasn't really driving or motivating me. So that's when I fell down this whole creator economy rabbit hole with things like NFTs, social tokens, and now most recently DAOs. So if I had to summarize everything that I do, I love helping creatives learn how to use the technology. And I spend most of my time contributing to projects that help keep the ball rolling and advance the industry as a whole.
Awesome. Yeah, no, very well said. So this space, crypto, is very broad. You've touched a lot of the different pieces of it, and we'll definitely get into these the creator economy and everything that has to do with crypto. But since you have this broad experience within crypto, and you're involved in a number of different niches, what is the most interesting? So to set the stage, right now it's July 2021 almost. So what's the most interesting area of crypto as we know it right now for you?
Yeah, the most interesting to me is figuring out what mainstream adoption looks like. A lot of the work that I do now is actually taking a step back from these highly sophisticated financial instruments that we've created and instead thinking about how does someone get involved with buying their very first token? What does it mean to join a community online? And what does it mean to be a member of that community through ownership? And so before we go super deep onto the nuances of that, I'm really fascinated by what it means to just join a community. And so something like a Discord server is very foreign to most people. Something like downloading MetaMask is very foreign to most people. And so a lot of my time is around innovation, bringing new people into the space that can help advance it, and then really drilling down on if you have an active community around an idea or a project, how do you empower them to be able to get work done in a distributed manner?
Yeah, I love it. And actually, in one of your articles, you explained DAOs as internet communities with a shared cap table and a bank account. So I had never heard it explained like that, but it's something that very much resonated with me. So I've had episodes on here about social tokens and NFTs and DAOs. So hopefully my audience is pretty familiar with this. But what about these internet communities and DAOs do you find so fascinating?
Great question. To me, it's the relationship between social and financial capital. I think for a lot of us, our day-to-day jobs are spent accumulating as much income as we can, trying to build up our bank account. And then outside of that, we have these social circles where we spend most of our time. To me, DAOs are sort of the first evolution where you're working with your friends. And I think being able to tie those two together, it creates deeper relationships. And at least on my end, I'm trying to figure out how to make an impact on the world by working with your closest friends. Those experiments feel really exciting, to the point that in a couple of years from now, I hope that most people can be working on things that they love, and hopefully DAOs are just one conduit of being able to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's give an overview of the DAO ecosystem and where it is right now. So I completely agree. In the future, like DAOs, well, we hope and think will have like an integral part of how we organize across different areas. But where are we right now, and what does it look like?
Basically, we are at a stage where there are a dozen new DAOs popping up every week. People are brainstorming incredibly cool ideas, and we're going from the ideation phase to the execution phase. So today, there's over 100 DAOs managing billions of dollars in assets. What we're seeing right now is a transition from them existing to them actually building meaningful value for the community. Some that I'm involved with that I'll call out, Friends with Benefits. This is a culture crypto community where you come out, hang with friends, and now we're building product around IRL experiences. Recently joined this DAO called Pleaser DAO. That's an NFT collection DAO looking to democratize ownership to some of the most iconic NFTs you've ever seen before. Seed Club, which I actively contribute to, which is a social token incubator. Could name a couple more, but basically we're seeing a lot of DAOs raise capital into a community-owned bank account and then using that capital to pay people in the same way you would a company, except it's all being done on-chain through crypto tooling. And I think that design space is both exciting from like a distributed work perspective, but it also opens up a lot of interesting questions around how do you value, a DAO's underlying token. This might not be a DeFi protocol that has billions of dollars of TVL, but it is someone that has 50 plus people contributing to it every day, spending all their free time coming to community calls. And what does that mean for us as an industry to place a market value on that and to see where this stacks up relative to all the other assets that exist today?
So presumably COVID and everybody staying at home and working from home and the more acceptance of remote work and the fact that, I may live in a city that's different from my family, that's different from my best friends, that's different from my co-founders, investors. This is becoming more and more normal. So presumably this was all fodder for the DAO fire. But why is crypto such an integral part of the way that these communities are formed versus just a database? And we just start an LLC and I let people in it, and a couple people are signers on the account. Why is crypto such an important piece of the way that these DAOs are formed?
I think it's the ownership element. I think that the tokens associated with these DAOs, they're global and permissionless in nature, to the point where if someone in the middle of Europe has a fantastic idea, they can collaborate with me here working in LA, and we can both, add value to the same token. I think that over time, we're going to see the word DAO is going to vary in terms of how deep of a technological process that is. But right now, the concept of having a token that represents ownership of a vehicle that you're contributing to, that core premise alone, I think, is enough to take this from a chat group to a more sophisticated vehicle that actually has financial upside to be gained from the work that they do together.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I'll caveat this next one by saying neither of us are financial or financial advisors or lawyers. So, not legal advice, anything we say in here. But I run the Crypto Mondays meetups here in LA, and actually DAOs came up last night, as that they do. These are some of the topics that tend to come up. And somebody was saying, they wanted to start a DAO to do this thing, and how great it would be to help collaboration across borders with people that perhaps you don't trust, you don't know, they're pseudonymous. And we started talking about like the legal steps to set up a DAO. So talk to me like I'm a young entrepreneur that wants to launch a DAO to do something, whether it's give grants or make investments. What do I need to know from a legal perspective to get started?
I think what you need to know is there's very different schools of thought on this subject. There's no concrete right answer right now. I've seen it vary from, on one end, you have a formal entity set up here in the US, an LLC that basically is the registered entity behind the DAO. In that situation, we see people limit participation to accredited investors, limit it to only 99 participants total. And that way you're really buttoned up and kind of covering your bases if you guys are making for-profit decisions. On the other side of things, and where I honestly spend more of my time, is kind of the more on-chain Web3 world, where you have an address that basically holds all of the DAO's assets. You have signers on that multi-sig wallet, and you're basically figuring out how to allocate capital in a very fluid way. As far as the legal ramifications of that, I don't think anyone has a great idea of what that looks like. And so we're all basically following social precedent that the members of that DAO are acting honestly and that the capital is being used in a productive manner. And until then, I think that we're all going to basically try and figure out how to take this to a point where the government recognizes it as a legal entity. And this is what we're seeing now with Wyoming. So very, very early stages. But I think one side of the puzzle, you have like very buttoned up, formal accredited investor DAO. And then the other side of the puzzle, you have YOLO, this is a new world, and we're going to redefine the rules as we make them happen ourselves.
Yeah, and this is the frustrating aspect, because I got into a disagreement with these guys. I said, from a legal perspective, like if you're talking to a lawyer and he says you don't have a legal structure in place, it's treated like a general partnership and you have unlimited liability. Oh, but it's an anonymous person that's setting this up, and it's not that. So there's conflicting things. And I think the unfortunate reality is, if you're trying to do things buttoned up by the legal way, it's not going to have the same feeling at all. And you have to pass accreditation and limited the number of members. It's a very different structure than like the utopia DAO that we see, that everybody's collaborating and working together. So yeah, I mean, not legal advice, but it's certainly in a design space right now. And yeah, I hope that the regulation doesn't clamp down hard on a lot of these, because that would be a real shame and set back the industry going forward. I'd be curious from your side, what needs to happen for more clarity on the legal aspect, or just in general, for more people to kind of go, oh, it clicks. That's what a DAO is. That's why that's useful. What would be helpful in this way?
Yeah, I think that's a two-part question. I think on the legal side of things, we need to see DAOs go more mainstream. So DAOs that are worth billions of dollars, that basically invite clarity to be made because it's so top of mind that everyone needs to know about it. I think in order to get there, accessibility is a term that I use a lot and that we hear a lot in this industry. I think the flow around joining a DAO, whether that's going from a Discord group to joining a token permission chat to being involved in governance, the world today is that we have all of these tools on the table to be able to do fun things like voting, like token gated chats, like treasury management, but they're all very scattered across the board. And so one thing I'm paying very close attention to is these Web3 native chat platforms where you can basically operate as a DAO without having to go to 5 different websites and have track of 5 different wallets, et cetera, et cetera. And I think over the next year or two, we'll slowly start to see the complexity stripped away, and basically what's left is like the core set of tools that's necessary to operate a DAO on a very, very light level.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, I mean, I was commenting earlier, you have a great article on like the DAO landscape with a number of these different tools. And it's like each one of these are used for different aspects within it. So the idea of all of these being packaged up as some like DAO starter pack would be amazing and really help more and more people get involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I add on to that real quick?
Yeah, please.
I think what's interesting is that when the DAO space started, everyone was trying to build the DAO starter pack. Projects like Aragon were basically trying to build an operating system that had all of these tools baked in. And it's funny that as an industry, we've stepped away from wanting to use an out-of-the-box starter pack to wanting to custom design like what our DAO needs. And we now have a lot more focus on these off-chain tools. So things like Snapshot, where you don't have to pay gas fees to be able to do the things you want a DAO to do, like use your tokens to vote. And it's my belief that over time, we're going to see more and more push towards, less decentralized versions of things, I'll call it, like less crypto native things, but that give us like this core set of tools we need to be able to coordinate and operate effectively without having to worry about all of the learning curves that come with like making on-chain transactions and attributing funds and doing all these weird things that kind of existed in V1 of the DAO world.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. No, I think that was a very, very helpful DAO overview. They're incredibly fascinating. I'll definitely link up your article. Is there anything you want to add on DAOs before I jump to the next topic?
I would say if you're thinking about starting a DAO, I would challenge you to join one first. I think that there's so many exciting projects out there right now that it's actually more beneficial for you to get involved with an existing community than starting your own. And if you get involved with one, you're finding that it doesn't quite fit what you want to do, go ahead and start one, but recognize that there's way more opportunity today to join a DAO than there is with the headaches associated with starting your own from day one.
Absolutely. And what's the best way to find out of the existing DAOs out there and kind of choose which one you want to join?
It's going to be a vague answer, but Twitter. I mean, like spend some time poking around Twitter, following all the accounts that talk about DAOs, and very quickly you'll see the ones come to the surface that are exciting to you.
Yeah. A common thing that comes up on all of these interviews is people really, really value Twitter as a platform, as a way to curate knowledge and opinions and all of these things. Uh, I'm curious, do you use any tools to do Twitter better, or is it just like most of us, which is just spending a lot of time on the platform, which is by design, I'm sure?
Yeah, default Twitter here. I mean, the one thing that I do is tweet storms, where I'll kind of like bucket up a lot of tweets into one very nice long thread. But outside of that, it's just twitter.com for me.
Yeah. I'm always hoping for like some secret sauce, but unfortunately, I did have one, but they've actually discontinued it anyway, so it's not even worth mentioning at this point. So clearly, not that many people were using it.
Hmm.
So there's that. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about, it kind of fits into this overall structure, is creator tokens. So the creator economy and social tokens. So I've mentioned these on the podcast before, but for my listeners, can you just give a brief overview of what these are and why they're important?
Sure. So creator tokens are a token representing a brand, individual, or community. In the same way that you can basically have a really loyal following online, a token now gives you the ability to have somewhat ownership over that entity. So think think Twitch streamers, YouTube influencers, Instagrammers, athletes, musicians, et cetera, et cetera. To me, creator tokens are important because it goes beyond having a really deeply technical crypto platform and instead applies those same primitives to a group or a community that we all know and love in our day to day today.
Yeah, definitely. And who do you see right now? So crypto, like the social token landscape, is very much in a exploratory phase. You see things that look like income share agreements. You see things that look like just a utility token within the products and offerings that me, the creator, offer. But who do you see like gaining the most traction within this broad area that is social tokens?
Yeah, so I'll break it down into two different buckets. The first is crypto native communities, and the second is non crypto native communities. The first one for crypto native communities, I'd like to say friends with benefits. We're doing a really fantastic job here. Basically, have a token permission Discord server, and now we're building products around what it means to be a member of that community. The Bankless DAO has been doing a fantastic job. They launched a token a few weeks back and basically are looking to reinvent what it means to be a media company in a Web3 age. On the non crypto native side of things, a platform called Rally has been onboarding a ton of awesome streamers, TikTokers, influencers, musicians, and they now have about 150 creators that are providing people with an easy on ramp to buying tokens with a credit card. And when you pop into one of those Discord servers, you can see different mindset, people engaged at a lot lower level, but we're starting to see some really fun experiments around what it means for someone to buy their first token and use that to join into a VIP chat with their friends.
Yeah, it's super cool space, and I'm excited to see it pushing forward. But Rally tokens are on a side chain or something, right? They're not ERC20, so they play well with things like Collab Land, or is there a bit of a disconnect there?
Rally basically has its own set of tools around its token. So they have something called CoinJoin, which acts similarly to Collabland. I think, honestly, there is a world in which I wish that they were ERC20 tokens. What I've come to appreciate is by having that siloed ecosystem, you do get to poke around with some more mainstream use cases. And I think this is the exact reason why we saw Nifty Gateway get so popular in the NFT space, is because they really, stripped away a lot of the complexity with on-chain interactions to favor those retail users. And it's my hope that we can kind of find a world in which that bridge becomes more synonymous, that it's not an all or nothing, centralized versus decentralized. We can kind of share the benefits of both worlds to offer a good solution for users of all archetypes.
Yeah, definitely. It's called CoinJoin. That's a
Yeah,
terrible
literally.
name. Isn't that the Bitcoin mixer?
It's like a little turtle bot. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, okay. Um, all right. So next, Do you want to talk about NFTs? I feel like this
Let's
this
get
this
into it.
whole story arc wouldn't be complete if we didn't mention NFTs next. Give me an overview of what's happening in the NFT world, what you find interesting. That would be helpful.
Yeah, so generative art is really popping off right now. I mean, on Twitter, you're now seeing a bunch of token launches where you have a script of assets. We'll call them Bored Apes, Crypto Punks, Polymorphs, whatever you want to say. But this race to mint these unique characters and then kind of collect the highest quality ones as per their different traits. I think on my end, what we're seeing is strong communities forming around different projects, which just further validates the creator token and community thesis that I've preached about for a long time. But we're seeing less focus on drops from like individual artists around like Nifty Gateway or something like that, and more kind of around these projects that develop communities around like an overarching theme of assets rather than the individual assets themselves. But with that being said, I think that specific NFT artists are going really deep on building out communities now. We're seeing artists minting their own custom smart contracts. They're doing contracts where an NFT has the power to mint more NFTs and doing some really fun on-chain games. One thing that I'm excited about is fractionalization. So basically taking an NFT, locking it in a contract, and then making an ERC20 token that represents a claim on that underlying asset. And so across the board, people are still really excited about NFTs. I think from the mainstream perspective, we've seen it kind of die down because the numbers aren't as high as they were a couple of months ago. But under the hood, I think the social capital being invested in the sector is still as high as ever.
Yeah, and I mean this world that I envision in the future has this wonderful intersection of NFTs as financial assets in this metaverse world that we play in, perhaps, but social tokens are a bigger part. Me as a podcaster, I can issue my own token and have this nice economy, and and DAOs are a key part of all of this. So I think all of them mixed together in this very intricate, beautiful way that's like ticking the box of all these reasons why we got into Web3 in the very, very beginning. That's for sure.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I think it's all intertwined. Like what I'll quickly comment there is the creator economy is not one sector of crypto. It's everything combined together to offer, the best of both worlds. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Awesome. Well, so this wouldn't be an investment podcast without asking investment related questions. So you saw our friend DeFi Dad asking this on Twitter actually as well. But let's start with DAOs and then go social tokens and then NFTs. So for the average investor, wanting to have exposure. So you've gotten them over the line. They understand DAOs are going to be a big thing. How do I invest? How do I get involved from a financial perspective to make sure that I participate in this rising tide that is DAOs?
Yeah, most DAOs today have fungible tokens that you can participate in. Right now, a lot of these are kind of lower on the market cap side of things, between like 20 million, $10 to $20 million market cap. And it's definitely a long bet in terms of them being able to pan themselves out. But, of that DAO map that I'd share, I'd say that at least 80%, 90% of them have a token associated with them. And so I think it's more just about one, understanding what that project does, and then two, being able to have a little bit of access into the community. And if that feels like a good fit to you, chances are you can either earn tokens from participating in the group, which is what I highly recommend, or be, going over to a Uniswap or a DEX like that and scooping some up off an exchange.
Awesome. No, it makes sense. And this comes up a lot as well, is like, get involved, jump in these discords, be helpful. And it's surprising how many times somebody will say, hey, that actually, yeah, we could use that. Come on in here. So appreciate that for sure. Okay, good answer. So most of these DAOs have a token. This makes sense. Social tokens. What's the best way for the average investor just to get broad exposure as opposed to buying individual creator tokens, perhaps?
It's a good question. I don't think that the social token space is at quite the basket level quite yet. I think in the next like 6 months, we'll start to see more index plays on social token as a whole. We'll start to see more platform tokens. But I would kind of echo my earlier statement that the most high value way to get exposure to DAOs and social tokens is to work for a community early on. For a lot of these groups, they still have non-transferable tokens where the value of them is undefined. They're often at generous valuations because of the fact that they are undefined. And so being able to find a creator or a group that you really love and just popping into community calls, finding out how to do a couple product sprints here and there, to your point, like any skill set is really valued at this time. And I think being able to just get in the weeds and pick out a couple creators that you really back and support, chances are you can earn an allocation of tokens that are going to be worth far beyond whatever you're going to make from trying to speculate and pick them up on a secondary market.
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, what about NFTs? I do get this all the time because people jump on OpenSea because they want to buy an NFT and they're like, I don't I don't know anything. So aside from perhaps buying a bundle of governance tokens, what's the best way to get broad exposure to the NFT world?
Yeah, so I think in the next 6 months, we're going to see a lot more platform tokens come onto the market. So NFT marketplaces that don't have tokens now, it's my belief we'll soon have them. I also think that doing for these community plays where there's something like a Bored Ape Yacht Club or Punks, for example, the new generative art stuff that we're seeing, I would be less inclined to tell someone to just hop on whatever the latest NFT minting train is and look over time to see what people have as their Twitter avatars and then work really hard to try and accumulate those assets. It's my belief that the more that you see people associating their identity with an asset, the higher likelihood it is that that will have long-term value. And so I would just kind of keep your eyes peeled for, Twitter avatars. And if you start seeing a bunch of one specific type of NFT, I think that's a good indicator that you might want to go out of your way and try and scoop one up.
Back on Twitter, unfortunately, everybody's listening to this like, damn, I got to spend more time on Twitter, I guess. And it's,
All comes back to Twitter, baby.
I know it's, well, especially within crypto, but finance as well. I mean, FinTwit is a really, really good space. I get a lot of good information. So on that topic, there is a lot of information. I mean, so far we've covered a lot with DAOs, NFTs, social tokens. Like these are some of the biggest macro trends within crypto right now. The other one that we didn't cover would be DeFi, and you said last summer, like DeFi summer, you're playing around. Are you still much involved? Anything you're watching that's incredibly interesting, perhaps innovative within the DeFi space, worth covering?
Yeah, I mean, I think just putting your assets to work, like basically every token that I own at this point, there is somewhere to stake it and earn yield on it. So I think being aware of what's happening across chain right now. So ecosystems like Matic, ecosystems like what's happening in Solana right now. I'm not buying new tokens on a day-to-day as much, but I am actively looking for places to deploy stable coins to earn not only native yield, but also tokens on top of that. One project I'm excited about is called Ribbon. What really stood out to me about this project is you deposit tokens into a vault that basically earns yield on selling options against it. And, they have a non-transferable token right now. So if you were an early user, you got an airdrop, but the community has intentionally voted to not make that transferable yet. And I think what you're seeing now is because of the fact that it's not transferable, more people are FOMOing into it. The vaults are filling up really fast. And one thing that I love about that is this kind of capped approach where a project starts with a non-transferable token. They offer some incentives to accumulate it, but they make it so that it's a little bit more scarce where not anyone can just farm with $10 billion. There's a fixed race to get into a small allocation, thus kind of rewarding the most active participants for being involved. So that's kind of where my mind is at with DeFi across the board. Like, what do capped launches look like? What do good airdrop experiences look like? Where are the places to be interacting with protocols that you think are going to tokenize? And I think across those three buckets, there's still a lot of unharvested alpha that's still to come in the coming months here.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the amount of like more mainstream interest, driven by money printer go burr memes and lack of yield in bank accounts, people are starting to wade into the waters of DeFi way further out on the risk spectrum than they probably realize. But they'll come along to it. I'm curious, after like the good overall view of the market and these individual niches, what do you see within crypto right now that is totally overhyped, or the narrative that you hear most commonly that is just plain wrong?
That our technology is ready for the mainstream. I think that there is so much work that needs to be done about bringing this entire industry to an average user. And I think right now we're severely overestimating how easy it is to get started with crypto and not really focusing enough on the very base level interactions that help us get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd be curious your thoughts on like, okay, so the whole goal of crypto is that you can self-custody your assets and own your bank and all of these things, right? Like uncensorable, all of these things. But then you have things that help accelerate mainstream adoption. such as Coinbase or Nifty Gateway, that have kind of obfuscated the whole like keep your private key, you can log in with an email and like whatever, we'll like custody it for you. How important are these things for mainstream adoption? Is this how we get there, or is there some other path that I'm not seeing?
I think it's extremely important, but I don't think it's extremely important for mainstream adoption. I think there will always be a subset of power users that will absolutely love these qualities, and it's something that will exist from now through the end of time. But I think for your average user that's poking around with $100 worth of crypto, them being able to self-custody that doesn't really matter. And I think it's actually more important that they can put that to work rather than making sure that they have true ownership over it.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. For the average user who's interested to get into crypto, perhaps DAOs, social tokens, NFTs, what resources do you push people towards to kind of like, welcome to crypto, let me dunk your head in the water? Where do you send newbies?
Yeah, I think trying to find the right Discord servers to be a part of is kind of my end state with where I try and get people involved. The ways that they get there, Forefront is a great resource to learn about kind of the wider social token ecosystem. There's outlets like Bankless and the Defiant, which are doing a great job reporting on DeFi and crypto more generally. NFT Now, which is a news media for NFTs that I really like a lot, doing a fantastic job there. And so I think it's less about where do you look, it's more about how much time do you put into looking, because if you actually take time and effort to research any one of these sectors, after 5-ish hours of studying, I think you'll find, a couple key players that'll be able to help drastically expedite your learning curve in the space.
Awesome. Great stuff. And I'll link up all of those in the show notes. Cooper, it's been a pleasure, man. We dumped a lot of knowledge, a lot of alpha hidden in there. What else? Where can my listeners find out more about you, or where would you like to send them?
Best place to stay up with me is on Twitter. I'm at Cooper Turley on there. If you're looking to go a little bit deeper, send me a message on Discord. I'm at Cooper Turley number 9799. No shortage of opportunities to get involved, so I encourage you to reach out and see about what the best next steps are.
Love it. Cooper, thanks so much for coming on. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me, man. This is a blast.
Absolutely. There you go. First off, thank you very much for listening all the way through. I hope you got a lot of value out of that conversation. As always, you can find show notes, links, and more at altassetallocation.com. Please share this with anyone you think might be interested and derive any value from this conversation. And as always, you can reach out to me for any feedback or questions. Please give the video a like, or even better, subscribe on YouTube or your podcast player of choice. This really helps others find the podcast or the video as well. Thanks a lot. Hope everybody has a fantastic day, and stay safe out there and invest wisely. Cheers.